In this lecture, we're adding a couple of highly level design extra scenes. No, they're not. They're ugly prototypes. And we're doing it so we can load from one scene to the next scene. And when we get to the last scene, we can go all the way back to the first scene. Let's get started. We're going to be creating some extra levels, so let's rename our sandbox from sandbox to something that describes the thing we're doing in it. So I'm going to call it over. We're flying over this thing here. We could name it level 1 and then level 2, but if we decide, oh, actually, this would make a better level 2, then we have to go and rename everything. So I'm going to go with this paradigm of calling them an actual functional name for our level. So this is over. I'm going to get rid of the fuel cell sphere in here. Sorry, we're not going to use you, but you were handy for the switch statement stuff. Thank you. And while I'm here, I need to make sure I click on the player rocket, find the overrides, and apply everything back to the prefab. We need to be careful about this moving forward, because if we make a change to something while we're in one of our scenes, we want to make sure that that's applied back to the prefab, our rocket prefab in here, so that any of our scenes that are using the rocket are using the prefabbed, correct, up-to-date, perfect rocket, so to speak. So I'm going to save all of this. We've got over, back to my scenes folder here. I want to make a second scene. I'm going to make a third scene, actually. I'm going to make three scenes in total. So 2 extra scenes. So I could either get there and just say right-click, create, scene, create a new scene, add all the stuff to it, add the player to it, etc. Or I could be a little bit cheaty and click on over, Control D to duplicate, and create a second. So instead of over, I'm going to call this one under, because I'm creative like that. Double click on under, and you can see our under is just up there, and for some reason the camera's decided it wants to be visible, so I'm going to turn off the visibility within our scene on the camera and camera. Great. And to be crazy, I'm going to take our object and move it up, maybe even scale it a little bit, slide it that way so it's a bit smudged. Now our collision's a little bit out of whack, so I'm just going to quickly update the collision just by clicking on that and putting it there. It doesn't need to be perfect. That's fine for now. You don't have to follow exactly what I'm doing. You can do something even more amazing with your level design than this. I'm just doing something so we've got it for illustrative purposes. The first one was over, this one's under. I'm going to save that. Now I will duplicate again, so click on under, Control D to duplicate. I'm going to rename this one through, just to be crazy, and then double click on through, so we're working on that. Once again, just turn my camera off. I'm going to click on my one object I've got in here, W. I'm going to Control D to duplicate that, drop that down, and put that one up a little bit. So we'll save. We've now got our 3 levels. We need to go up to File, Build Profiles, find our scenes, and you can see we've just got one in there, over. It's renamed it, or it's picked up the rename, which is great. I'm going to drag through, and I'm going to drag under. What's the order that we want here? Do I want it to go over, and then under, and then through? Probably, yep, over, under, through. So I'm going to have over, over, under, and under, under, over. And I'm going to labor this joke for as long as I can. But anyway, over, under, and through. We've got 0, 1, and 2 as the build indexes for these particular scenes. X out of that. It's going to jump back to over, because that's our first scene. So I want to have that as our starting point. And we're ready, I think, for challenge time. The challenge time is to load the next level. So when we reach the landing pad, I want you to load the next level. And here's your hint. Our scene index is an integer. So at the right point in time within our switch statement, we want to add a number to our integer. So there's a clue. I know it's a little bit vague, a little bit ambiguous. If you're scratching your head, that's great. It means you're thinking about your code. So stare at the code for a little bit, scratch your head, and see if you can come up with a solution to that. Doesn't matter if it's not exactly the same as my solution. I'll take you through my solution, and then you can choose which one you think is better. So pause the video, and I'll see you back here shortly. Right, let's get into our code. We've got our switch statement. We need to add some stuff in here. At what point? When we're speaking with our finish friend. So case finish, instead of debugging, you've done some crazy stuff there. We're going to add or create a new method, which we'll call load next level, parentheses, semicolon. It's got squiggly line because it doesn't understand that yet, but that's what we're going to do there. I'm just going to delete my fuel case because we've got rid of fuel, so we don't need that anymore. We'll just delete that to tidy this up a little bit, make it a little bit smaller on our screen. Load next level. Let's jump on down. I'll do this above reload next level. I like to have my methods in the same order that they occur. So load next levels happening first, and then reload levels happening next. So I'm going to put that down underneath here as load next level. So load next level, this is what we're going to create, parentheses. we need our curly braces, and of course we need no return type, so we add void in front of our void load next level. If you want to be super thorough, you could add the private, but we don't have to, so I'm just going to leave it as void load next level. Now what do? I'm going to cheat by copying all of my code from reload level and pasting that within load next level. So we're saying, hey, the current scene is scene manager.getActiveScene build index. And then, so we know what scene we're on. And at this point we say, we want you to load a particular scene, not the current scene, but current scene plus 1. Yes, because current scene is a number, it's an index, it knows who it is. And we add 1 to it so that we go to the very next scene in our cycle. Let's save and see if that actually worked. Click on play, check that I can bash into the ground as I'm supposed to. Yep, that reloads. Just want to make sure you don't break those cases that are important. And then down on this pad, boop. And that loads the under. So we've gone from over to under. Look at those skills. And then we've got through. Oh, but something's happening with through. I think because my collision on through is a bit messed up. So let's go have a look at through. And that one looks okay. That one looks really quite not okay. So I'm going to delete that bottom one. Just take a moment to tidy up my silly collision box I've got on this, because I did a pretty bad job of it. I'm going to find the radius and reduce that down, and find the height. That's not it. Find the Y. Okay, put it in the middle. That looks like it's pretty good now. Okay. And then I'm going to duplicate. This is quite sloppy way of doing our collision, by the way, doing our prefabs. So this is something just while we're being fast and loose and prototyping, I should set my prefab up a little bit better. This collision's not very good on there, but I just want to do this quickly so collision's roughly in the right spot, but it is a little bit sloppy the way I'm doing it, fast and loose. But let's just make sure it works. We'll click on play, and then can I actually get through here? We want to make sure that when we get to the end, it doesn't know what's going on. It's like, wait a minute, dude, there is no level index of 4. Or what are we up to? There's no level index of 3. Are you crazy? 1, 2, and then it tried to get to 3, and it had a little hissy fit on us. So we need to resolve that. It's all good. Thank you, Unity, for telling us we don't have that extra scene that doesn't know what's going on there. So within our load next level, let's create a variable for this concept of going to the next scene, or saying what the next scene should be. So we'll give ourselves a little bit of space. We'll come back to you down in the bottom here. We haven't forgotten about you, but we'll type int, and then we'll say what the next scene is going to be. We'll create that as a variable. So next scene, we could call it next scene index, but I'll just call it next scene for now. Next scene equals current scene plus 1. There we go. So we've created this concept of, we know what the current scene is because we've gone and got it. We know what the next scene is because we're saying the current scene plus 1. Now we need a way of saying, if we're at our maximum amount of scenes, go back to 0. So we want an if statement in here. Let's add a little if statement. If our next scene is the same as, how do we write the same as? We write it as 2 equal signs. Equals, equals, next scene is the same as, or equals. Now what do we want to do in here? Well, we need a way of saying how many scenes are there? What's the total number of scenes in this whole game, in this whole build? And there's a way we can access that in the scene manager. So scene manager dot scene, and we'll have a look through here. This is one of those things that if you get stuck, you're like, oh, I'm sure there's a way to do this. Let me have a look at what's in scene manager. You can just go scene manager dot, and then scroll through here. I've sped us up a little bit by searching for scene. Scene count in build settings is basically saying how many scenes do we have in our build settings, and we can tap into that. So next scene, if it is exactly the same as the total number of scenes, then what do we want to do in this instance? We want to say that the next scene will therefore be 0. Because if we're currently maxed out, we say, oh, cool, we'll make the next scene 0 then. So next scene equals, so the index for the next scene equals 0. And then after all of that, we say, cool, load, so scene manager dot load scene, instead of current scene plus 1, we say next scene. Let's just quickly go through there. So current scene, we know we're getting the build index. The next scene is the current plus 1. If the next scene is the same as the total that we've got, then, hey, reset the next scene to 0. Otherwise, because remember, if this is false, it's going to ignore that completely. It's going to jump down to here and say, okay, cool, load the next scene. What's the next scene? Well, it's current scene plus 1. So there's our logic there. Let's save that, see if this is going to work for us. I'm currently on the through scene, which we know has an index of 2. You can load up any of these. I could load up, say, under, and oh yes, let's save before we head out of there. I've loaded up under, click on play, and then I'm going to land fairly loosely, land on that. My collision's been fixed, land on this one. It should go back to the first one, over. Cool. And so then over should take us to boop, the second one, and so on. Great. And if I crash into the ground, it reloads as it's supposed to. So there we go. We're cycling through our levels. We're going from one level to the next, and when we get to the end, we go all the way back to the start. So great stuff. That's us loading scenes. I'll see you in the next lecture.